right? And so I share it with the group. And if you know Andy's podcast, they start out with like a rap song, and every other word is a cuss word. And then he opens up the show with a cuss word, like, oh, that's fucking great, And so I sent that out. I'm like, hey, guys, it's worth the 11 minutes to listen to this show, enjoy it. You get all fired up. And it started trickling back like, I wasn't really sure what you sent me with this rap music and the cussing. And then I start cringing like, oh shit, I sent this to some of my older buddies too. Like they all got it. What are they going to think? Like, are they going to make it through the rap music to get to the message? So it's kind of funny. But if you think about it, Andy had a #1 podcast for a year and a half on iTunes, and he's still number 5. I just saw the results the other day. He's still number 5 on iTunes, calling it like he hears it. He's not political, but yet he is. But he's raw. He's got an opinion, and he's not going to hold anything back. Nobody's safe around Andy, if he's got an opinion about it.
For sure. Yeah. And it's funny when you mention that about kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to say the older generation, but like podcasts are generally a newer form of media, like you said. So it's funny, like my fiance's parents are like, podcast, what's a podcast? Uh-huh. Like when I was coming out with it, and I was like, what do you mean, what's a podcast? Like, like it's something that's so everyone that I know listens to them and stuff like that. But there's a huge subsection of the population that it's like not even on their radar yet, but it probably will be.
What you do?
It's like, well, you ever listen to radio? And they're like, yeah, it's like that,
Same difference. What you do with those people is you put the podcast on their iPhone or whatever phone they got, because it's going to come on all of them, unless it's a flip phone. Put the Mike Rowe show on there. How I heard it. Awesome show. Older people love it because it's historical, and Mike Rowe's awesome. He's got that voice that everybody recognizes. Then all of a sudden, like, oh, I love podcasts. I listen to them all.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that's so easy to consume all the time. Everything else is so video based, and like you have to really pay attention to it, and that's what's great about it.
Yeah. Just to talk about Arete for a minute, we're both in it. I just joined the Lion's Den too with Sean Whalen a couple weeks ago. I've known Sean for a number of years, never got into his den, I don't know, for whatever reason, but I just felt like, this guy's, he's been a good friend, and he's helped me, and he's going to write a little forward in my book that I have coming out. Anyways, cool. So I'm in the den now. I'm really enjoying these groups and the interaction with people that I'm meeting in these groups. It's got me out of my comfort zone a little bit in terms of just reaching out like, hey, give me a call. So all of a sudden you're taking calls from random people, and you're trying to make a connect, learn a little bit about them, and try to discover, why am I talking to this person? So I don't know, what's your experience been within the members of Arete?
I mean, I think the calls are super valuable, obviously, hearing from Andy and Ed, but the main value, the real value, and I think most people would agree, is in the network. It's in the other members. Yeah. And so Arete is one of those things that it opens up a couple times a year. And I think Lion's Den is similar. And you apply, you get in. And so you see like a surge in membership a couple times a year. And then it slowly, I pay attention to, I check every once in a while, go from 2,000, 1,900, 1,800. It was down to like 1,300. So like there's a big amount that drops off, because again, the monthly like it's something that like it's not a Planet Fitness membership for $10 a month that you don't think about. Like,
right.
If you're going to do it, I mean, for some of these guys, it might feel like that, but in general, like if you're going to join, like utilize the group. That's where the money's at. Like, it's not just listening to the calls. So you get in, you're basically getting access to like-minded people, and people who are doing like real stuff, like no fluffy guru, whatever BS, that I'm talking about. So like, there's a lot of fake in the entrepreneur world, right? There's a lot of showmanship. There's a lot of kind of Instagram culture and that sort of stuff. But in these groups, like you get they do a pretty good job of getting like real people who are doing big things, who are on the same page. And so I haven't had a bad experience. I've met hundreds of Arete members now, and not one where I like ended the conversation, I was like, oh man, that sucked. Or like, I don't want to talk to that person again. Like every conversation, like something comes out of it, or you feel good about it, or you are able to provide some value, or vice versa. Like And so like this call, this, podcast that's happening right now, I was like, Jim seems like another, cool guy, podcaster, Arete, like, let's connect, see what happens. Like, that's just the mindset, like no real intention going in. I'm not going to try and sell him. And I know he's not going to try and sell me. And like, that's the beauty of it. And everyone has the same mindset. And so everyone knows everyone. And so you just make connections, they'll make connections for you. And so that's just where I've found the value to be. And also I work, on the computer at home by myself most days. Mm-hmm. And so like, where do you find those people to connect with? Like you need some form of connection, even though like it's over Zoom, and a lot of times it's over Zoom, but like the majority of the people that I spend time connecting with and talking to are on the same page. They're those high level entrepreneurs that like, if I were to just go out in my little community, they'd be really hard to find. And so you're getting access, you're getting those connections, you're getting speed, and I could go on and on, but that's what it's been for me.
Well, and I think that's kind of where the gold is on this show right now is if you're going to be a member of something, look at what the values are within that mm-hmm. group. The calls are awesome, and yep. I take copious notes through those calls. But like you said, the real value is reaching out to members, offering them value, and see where that relationship goes. Because, geez, in a post-COVID world, or I guess we're getting there in some states, how else are we going to connect, right? You're in your house all day. Our people aren't out as much conducting business. Offices are shutting down because we've all learned we can Zoom now. So to be involved in a group of high-level entrepreneurs, business executives, athletes, Arete Group or Lions Den, they're just completely invaluable as it relates mm-hmm. to where we're going as a society. So I was going to ask you, like in Arete, what tool are you leveraging? Are you leveraging the Facebook connection because we have an Arete private group? Are you leveraging the our directory with all the members in it? How are you connecting to people?
Yeah, for me, it's been a mix, but it's been primarily through the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I put up, I got to do it again, but I put up a post a while back kind of saying what I said to you, like, hey, hi, everyone, I'm Bradley, would love to connect. Here's a Zoom link. Like, let's do it. Had a bunch of people do that, and that kind of got the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Where, okay, I'm getting to know people. And then there's also some subgroups, right? There's like an e-commerce group that I was in. I actually started a subgroup for podcasting. I don't know. I think you're in there. I'm not sure, but
I don't know.
We do like a group call every couple of weeks in there. So now I'm kind of like slowly, I guess, become like a couple of people referred to me recently as like the podcast guy.
Nice.
Which is like new for me. So those subgroups, and then there's networking calls. So you meet these people. Most of the time you connect through Instagram as well, maybe even LinkedIn, and then you stay connected there, and you kind of, it's cool. Like my Instagram feed, like half of the people's stories are like doing 75 hard.
I know.
And so it's crazy. Like most of the people I know outside of like Arete and those circles, their Instagram feed is very different. Like they go on and they're like, oh man, I have this one friend who's doing 75 hard. Like he's nuts. And I'm like, yeah, that's like almost everyone that I follow has done it at least once. You know what I mean? And so just to see that and be around that all the time. And like, I love to just, give people quick reaction, stay connected, like cheer them on. And they do it vice versa. And that's super huge. Because I think a lot of times if you're not connected with those people and you're posting those kinds of things, like you kind of get crickets from the majority of society.
Yeah. Well, and you're a product of your environment too. You're spending more time around successful people in these groups. You're interacting with them on your social media. And, like you said, most people that you're interacting with are doing 75 hard. They're operating at a top level. And you look at other people's feeds and you're like, yeah, not for me anymore. Maybe that was me in the past, but, this is where I'm heading. And it's so true, though, when you think about it. And what's interesting is with Lions Den with Sean Whalen, he's a big proponent of 75 hard. He got shredded on it, so his group, even though it's his group, not Andy's group, they're all talking about 75 hard over there too. And it's awesome, the movement that's been created amongst entrepreneurs kind of in this new era of where we're heading. And it's exciting to see. I hope more people catch on to what they're capable of doing and chase after some of these things. I love your story because, it wasn't easy, and you were very transparent about, hey, we're just getting started and we're not crushing it yet, but we will be, and this is my 3-year plan and everything. I think people only look at somebody's end result and think, oh, I'll never be able to do that, and they never even start.
Yep.
And you were so transparent to tell your story, how you started and everything, because it's a struggle, but once you get there, you're there and you're enjoying it, and hopefully you're growing and doing 75 hard and all those other cool things.
Yeah, it's a really tricky thing, I think, to not compare. Like, again, like being in these circles is awesome, but then you also look and you're like, man, like these guys are all crushing it. Why am I not maybe at that level of some of them? Mm-hmm. And so it can be easy to kind of like, get down on yourself and that sort of thing. But that's why it's so important. And it's one of those cliches you hear all the time, but like to compete against yourself or your former self or whatever. And so, I look back a year ago and I didn't have a podcast. I was kind of lost. I was frustrated. I was struggling. Now I'm 40 episodes into my podcast. It's doing great. And I'm helping others. And I have all these amazing connections now. And so it's like, I think it's really important to look back and see how far you've come.
Yeah.
And it keeps you from getting sucked into that comparison Instagram world. It still happens for sure. There's days where I'm like, man, like what the heck? What am I doing wrong? And why am I not seeing the results as fast as I want? And that's totally normal. And so it's just kind of, I think for a lot of things, stepping back and getting that bigger perspective.
We all get caught in that trap of, trying to chase what everybody else is doing or what they have. And, like you said, even you get trapped once in a while. I do once in a while. I look at my Instagram feed. I have an agency that does a lot of my stuff for me. And I've got 4,300 followers on my Instagram. And it's kind of been hovering around there. But they're real followers. Like, I know almost every single person on there. It's not some group from Russia, 1,000 people from Russia.
Right.
Like, who are these people? I know almost every single person on there. So, and that's where the gold is, right? They're real, authentic followers that you interact with. And any number is a good number, because think about it. If I said something, I can reach out to 4,300 people. How often can you do that? That's like a small concert venue.
Right.
Here I am on stage. What are you going to say? And I do think that people get too trapped into comparing people. I came from the alcohol industry most of my life. I was the vice president of Kettle One Vodka for 10 years, did all their marketing. I owned my own tequila company. And it was funny because when I was at Kettle One, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you guys are the ultra brand. You're everywhere, this and that. Well, when I started, we were nowhere. We wanted, our goal was to have 1% of Stoli's vodka business. 1%. That's nothing.
Wow.
We sold half the company for $1 billion. When I left there, the family decided that they were going to sell off the company for $1 billion. And what a lot of people didn't realize is that we'd already been around in the U.S. for 18 years. Prior to that, the company had been around for 316 years, 11 generation family. Like, this just didn't start up overnight. It took time to grow that business and get it to where it was. Just because all of a sudden you found the brand and we're everywhere doesn't mean that it had always been that way. And I think that's the trap we fall into. We're afraid to start. We look at a podcast, oh my gosh, he's got 1 million listeners or whatever it is. I can't compete with that. We all started somewhere, and that probably took 10 years to get there. I don't know how long Andy's been doing his podcast, but that guy's got a lot of shows out, a lot of years behind that thing.
And 20 years of experience to speak about.
Exactly. So, my whole thing is get started, even if it's 5 minutes a day. If you got a regular job and you're consumed with that, but you want to start your own business, 5 minutes a day starts to add up, and then eventually starts to become 10 minutes a day and a little bit more. All of a sudden you're selling something or whatever it is, and you're going, and then it becomes your life. It's like, wow, I could quit my day job. You got to start, right? Don't just sit on it. Start somewhere.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's one of those things we hear all the time again about the journey. It's like people look at this mountain, they look at the mountaintop. How do I get there? Like, they want to take like the helicopter, like they want to just get dropped off and be there at the top. And it's like, nope, you got to start at the bottom and you got to walk up one step at a time, just like everyone else. And it's probably going to take longer than it even looks like it's going to in the beginning. That's one thing I've learned. It's no matter how hard you work, almost everything that you think takes roughly twice as long as like a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you found that to be true as well, but that was something that as a beginning entrepreneur a few years ago, I kept saying, oh, okay, I have this